Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever the fuck you're watching this. This is the Rosinbaggers podcast brought to you by Backyard Sports. Stove, sorry for the intro there, bud. I jumped the gun a little bit. I know you've got command, and
No, you're
I
good, bud.
I just threw it out there. That's on me. But hey, how you doing, man?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. Another week in paradise. Another week of baseball down, and we're getting to the closing end. We're almost into September baseball when rosters start expanding and those playoff races get a little bit tighter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is the time of year, right? We got what, five and a half weeks of baseball left in the regular season, and we've got some races that are heating up. Obviously, the NL East is starting to get tight if you've been paying attention to that at all. The AL East has gotten awkwardly tight because it was like 20 games just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And the Yankees have been the worst team in baseball in August up until this series with the Mets when they took a couple from them. It's
When
getting
they
interesting
needed
here with
to.
the
When they
playoffs.
needed to.
They needed to, and those Braves that are breathing down the necks of the Mets, they needed the Yankees to get a couple from them too. I know my dad; he's going to be tuning in. He's been keeping a close eye on that. Big Braves fan, so
Oh,
um,
nice.
yeah, for sure. All right, let's jump right into it. Let's look at review from last week. So Ty's not with us tonight. We're gonna miss him, but he's got some other commitments that he's got going on right now. His day job's got him calling some softball here. So he looked at the Subway Series, and as we just mentioned, the Yankees took a couple of games here from the Mets. I know Braves fans are real happy about that, and the Yankees desperately, as you said, Stove, needed to get off the schneid, needed to get a couple of wins here. Do you think this rights the ship for the Yankees, or is it kind of just a respite? Do you think they still have the problems that have plagued them over the month of August?
Well, I mean, obviously, winning a couple games against a high caliber opponent as the Mets obviously helps and
Yeah.
helps with the frustrations that have been mounting with everyone in the New York dugout and organization over this past month. Um, so I think I mean every team throughout the year goes through their losing spurts and everything else like that. Um, I don't think that I don't think anybody saw the losing streak that the Yankees have had this month. Um, I don't think anyone saw that coming. Uh, and so I think that's where the frustration was coming. I mean, can you look at the Yankees organization with the pitching, the hitting, I mean, just the guys that they have. I mean, you know, earlier in the year, you guys were talking about Yankees, 121,
Yeah.
121 wins. And
Yeah.
I'm like, not going to happen. I just don't think it's sustainable. And sure enough, they they showed us why, because every team has these spurts, you know, not as long as the Yankees have had, but it happened. And so I think the two wins over the Mets, who's in first place in the NL East, uh, has will definitely help them moving forward into this weekend and so forth, going into September baseball.
Yeah, for
I think,
sure.
especially if you can get out of the month of August with the record that you've had. I know we still got about another week uh, of baseball in August, but if they can get out of August, September is a new month.
Yeah.
It's just like the playoffs. You're going into a new month is basically a 0-0 record. See what we can do, build on our record, see what seed we can get going into the playoffs. Then
Yeah, for sure. And we always talk about July and August being the dog days of summer, and it seems like the month of August has been the doldrums really for the Yankees. So getting a couple for them, big. Taking a couple from their crosstown rivals, especially first place team in a pretty competitive division. It's got to be a good boon for them. Speaking of Boone, maybe Aaron Boone can stop punching tables now that they've won a couple of games because he was getting to the point of boiling frustration, and it reared its ugly head in an interview where he just got to the point where he's like, "We know how to fix it. We just got to fucking fix it, right?" And it seems against the Mets that they did a little bit. But you mentioned sustainability, and I want to harken back to that a little bit. The Yankees won a lot of games through the first half to almost 2/3 of the season with really clutch, really timely hitting. I don't know how many walk-off home runs Aaron Judge has this year, but he's got to be like approaching historical numbers with the number he's had. Pitching, they had guys that were having career years. Tyone and Nestor Cortez were having career years. I just feel like you nailed it on the head when you said it's not sustainable, because that form of baseball, everything has to kind of be in sync. Everything has to kind of fall into place to continue to win games at the clip that they were winning games. And I think the month of August, the bullpen has struggled, the starting pitching has struggled, and they haven't been able to score enough runs because they were just getting that timely hitting to win games 4-3 and 5-4 and 3-2, walk-off home runs, walk-off hits. They weren't able to play those types of games, and they weren't able to get those clutch hits down the stretch. And we saw it with Houston, and we alluded to it right before the All-Star break. Houston got to their bullpen and started to expose them a little bit. And I think that's what we've seen from the Yankees, is a little bit of a trickle down, that they've lost some games they shouldn't have lost. They've probably put a little more pressure on themselves in the starting rotation to say, I've got to go deeper, or I've got to be better, or I've got to, mostly I've got to be better, right? And I'm sure that it's not lost on Booney right on the bench to say, God, I need my starter to go 6. I need my starter to go 7 so I can bridge that gap. And then the struggles of Holmes in the closer role, he's been struggling. So it's all those things that were going absolutely perfectly for the Yankees through about the halfway plus mark right before the All-Star break that have started to break down for them. And they're going to need to start figuring that out going forward from this point forward. And the trade they made at the deadline hasn't worked out. Montas has been fucking terrible in his 3 starts as a Yankee. So, for them, getting these couple wins has got to be a help, but I don't think they're out of the woods yet.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. And let me go back to a comment you made about, the 4-3 games or the 3-2 games and the timely hits and everything else. I think all of us and all of baseball looked at the Yankees lineup, and I think everyone said these guys are going to be scoring 5, 6, 7, 8 runs a game with that lineup. That's like Murderers Row ×2 in 2022. With everyone that they had, and it hasn't played out like that.
Nope. Agree completely. And I think we're starting to see some of that. Stanton's out right now. If he comes back and they start getting some production out of him, maybe they turn things around a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at your series. The Braves, a team that was watching that Yankees-Mets series pretty closely. They go up against another tough team here in Houston. First place in the AL West and best record in the AL. A couple of good pitching matchups in this series. What'd you think of this series?
So, obviously last week when I highlighted it, my main thing on it was screw the Astros. No one likes the Astros. and that sentiment has not changed one bit. Screw the Astros. And the Braves took 2 of 3 from them. They lost the Sunday game to them, but they did win a good game on Saturday in extra innings. Came back a couple times in extras and won it on a walk-off, and it was basically a walk-off check swing, and I alluded to it last week that after the All-Star break is when the Braves started to heat up. They started putting things together, and here we are again. After the All-Star break, the Braves are putting things together, and they're heating up. They're on the tails of the Mets here. Mets go into that Subway Series against the Yankees and lose 2 of 3. The Braves took 2 of 3 from the AL West Astros. So, good series win for the Braves. Definitely a good series win for the Braves. and always, love seeing the Astros lose in any fashion. So can't complain on that end.
Absolutely. And the Braves won again today. They swept the Pirates. It's a game and a half in the NL East right now. And, I know we've talked a little bit about the Phillies playing better baseball. They're, in my opinion, kind of out of the picture. It's 10 for them. I don't think that both of the Mets and the Braves are going to collapse. So Philly's probably looking at wild card possibilities. But the NL East is getting real hot right at the top. Things are going to start to get tight. And you look at the difference between the Mets and the Braves. The Braves have been here last year. They had to play playoff baseball essentially the last 2.5 months of the season, and they carried that over into a World Series win, whereas the Mets have a history of collapsing, and we're starting to kind of see that come to fruition here. It's been one of those things where like the Braves would get close and then the Mets would win a few games. The Braves would get close, the Mets would win a few games. But this feels a little different right now with the Braves getting real hot, beating good teams, and they just beat the Mets 2 out of 3 in a series about a week and a half ago.
And I think it was last week that we alluded to it, or it might have been maybe closer to a month ago. Okay. And we talked about the Braves heating up, and this was the time of year last year that the Mets started their just dismal drop spiral. Yes, exactly. From first place. And we said that wasn't going to happen this year because of who?
Scherzer and DeGrom.
Mostly
Scherzer, yeah.
Yeah. The Yankees just beat Scherzer and DeGrom.
There's no bigger statement to make that says
exactly.
We're back and you're probably going to spiral than beating both Scherzer and DeGrom in back-to-back games too.
Yep. So I still don't think that the Mets are going to spiral like they did last year. You just got to get more run support, a little bit more run support.
I think right now I'm willing to go out on a ledge, and maybe this isn't a crazy ledge to go out on, but right now it feels like this is the Braves division to win or the Braves division to lose.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they've got the proven metal. I like the Scherzer as a stabilizing force for the Mets, but I also think that the Braves are going to get by them for the NL East crown, and the Mets are going to be a wild card team.
Yeah.
It just feels that way right now.
Yeah. And man, I saw something last week with a DeGrom stat. It was crazy. It was totally crazy. I thought I took a picture of it. I did not, but it was one of those stats where out of like 140, 170 games that he has started, he has allowed 2 or fewer runs and then I think it might have been like 170 or something, two or fewer. Out of 140 starts, he has allowed 1 or fewer.
Jesus,
that's a hell of a stat.
That's Bob Gibson shit, man.
But here's the thing, though, he hasn't got much run.
They only score 1 or 2 a game.
Exactly.
He has to get the worst run support in the league.
Oh yeah. And if you look at his Cy Young Award season, he had a losing record.
Yeah, he was 9-10, I think that year.
Yeah,
10
he
and
had
11,
a losing record.
Like but he had a 1.98 ERA.
Yeah.
How do you have a losing record with a fucking sub-2 ERA?
You have no run support whatsoever. You were losing games 1-0.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, brutal. All right. Real quick, I have to apologize to the Guardians because last week, mid-show, I buried my series choice because I said, well, the Guardians are about to drop the second one against the fucking Tigers. And then by the end of the show, they'd come back and won the game. And oh, by the way, they've gotten hot since. And they're in first fucking place in the AL Central now after I think they're 6-9 or 6 of their last 9 they've won. And the Twins have been dropping games. The White Sox have been kind of treading water. The Guardians are a game and a half in first place in the AL Central. So I'm dead ass. I'm going to apologize for burying the Guardians and the White Sox series from last week. And I'm going to talk about Tristan McKenzie. Once he had gotten his feet underneath him, this dude's been awesome over his last handful of starts. He's a guy who is a quiet contender for Rookie of the Year in the AL. Won't get there. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez is going to run away with the AL Rookie of the Year. But Tristan McKenzie, remember that name for the next few years because he's the next real arm in this Guardians rotation. They just seem to find guys, right? Bieber and Kluber, and they've had a number of guys over the last, 10, 12, 15 years that there's just one guy. It's Sabathia and Cliff Lee and those guys that, kind of sneak up on you and they're awesome.
And some names from the past.
Dude, blast from the past, right?
Yeah.
But Tristan McKenzie is the next guy for Cleveland, and he showed it against the White Sox. He went 6, and I think it was scoreless. He might have given up 1 run, but actually it was scoreless because they shut him out in that game that he pitched. They beat him 2-0 or 3-0 in the middle game of that series. So the Cleveland Guardians, I apologize. I'll eat my hat for burying you mid-show last week, but they're playing good baseball right now, and they've been one of those teams you mentioned, like kind of those rocky spells you go through. The Guardians were really hot right around the All-Star break, had first place for a few days, and then they kind of fell off and lost a few games. The Twins were playing good baseball. Now the Guardians have started playing good baseball, and they've won 3 straight series. Like I said, they're 6-3 in their last 9. It might be 7-3 in their last 10 after tonight because I think they had a lead a moment ago. But Cleveland playing good baseball right now, and I want to say the name one more time so everybody remembers it. Tristan McKenzie, the next big thing on the bump for the Cleveland Guardians. All right. So let's talk about this upcoming week here. And let's talk Braves, let's talk Cardinals. We're all kind of in sync on this one. Ty, the Cardinals fan, is not here to talk about this series, but for me, I'm looking at potentially wild card position, potentially division winners. The Cardinals are going to go back and forth, I think, with the Brewers all the way down to the stretch. And possibly the Braves and Mets are going to go back and forth down the stretch. I just said it's the Braves division to lose, but this series between the Braves and the Cardinals has serious playoff implications. If one team takes, 2 or 3 from the other team, we're looking at possibly a real swing in the wild card standings or a swing in the divisional standings. So this is 2 teams in a slate of games. Stove, you and I were talking before the show, a slate of games this upcoming weekend that is a lot of haves versus have-nots, which is surprising. Couple of series, that had some potential. Guardians are playing the Mariners, the Orioles are playing the Astros, but this one to me kind of stuck out because it's possibly division winners, but it's also looking at the wild card standings, these 2. And, you're going to get some decent matchups, on the bump. Michaelis is throwing the ball as good as anybody in the league. And then the Braves got that 1-2 punch with Fried and Strider right now that are pretty unbelievable on the bump. For me, I really look forward to this one because of the playoff implications. What do you think, Stove?
Well, I know Ty's not here tonight, so I'll do a little. I'll give Ty's take on this, and then I'll give my take on it. Okay, just for you, Ty. So yeah, the first game of the series, you got Strider versus Quintana. You got new guy versus old guy here. So Strider is gonna just go ahead and just not do it for the Braves because Quintana's, he's got that old man mentality. He's going to go about 6 innings for you. And I got Albert Pujols, who's been the best hitter in Major League Baseball as of late. He's riding up to that 700 home run club and everything. He just hit 693 against them damn Chicago Cubs over there. And, so yeah, the Braves are going to lose at least 2, if not 3 games. We're going to sweep them I think we're going to sweep them this week, and we're just going to solidify ourselves in that top NL Central spot after this weekend's matchup with the Braves. So, Our pitching's just going to dominate. Our defense is going to dominate. We're still missing Hader out there in the outfield. But you know what? We got the old true in Albert Pujols, and he's just going to carry us to the top.
How dirty did that feel to have to talk about the Cardinals like that?
Real dirty. Real dirty. Real dirty. Appreciate that take, Ty.
Now give me Big Stove's take.
so my take on this series, is the Braves are going to go ahead and sweep them here, and it's going to be, Albert Pujols is not going to get his 700 home runs this year. He's gonna die and go out retired at 699. Just leaving that one out there. And this is where it's going to be. Okay, the Braves are going to dominate with pitching this week and their offense. They're going to send the Cardinals into a 3-game losing streak. And then it's going to be a battle between them and the Brewers for the rest of the season. And I can't wait to see the Cardinals just spiral out of control and get a wild card spot and have to play someone over there in the next wild card spot. Probably the Mets. Yeah, absolutely. And be one and done. Love it. Love it.
Spoken like a true Cubs fan.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, before we transition into our State of the Union here, let's do our salute to service. All right, tonight's episode goes out to Army Staff Sergeant Jeremiah Johnson. He died October 4th, 2017, serving during U.S. Africa Command operations. He died in southwest Niger as a result of hostile fire. He was on reconnaissance patrol. He was assigned to 3rd Special Forces Group Airborne out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Army Staff Sergeant Jeremiah Johnson, we have the watch. All right, let's transition to State of the Union. I'll tell you that transition's a little easier than on some of the other shows because we go from the salute to the State of the Union with a little bit of the pomp and circumstance, and then the other shows we go from usually State of the Union to some high tempo, high energy segment. So it is a little bit of an easier transition, not to make light of what we're doing with the salute, but it is a little bit easier transition for us.
Absolutely.
All right, so I wanted to take a look at the State of the Union here because this week the new pipeline rankings for farm systems were released. And I wanted to point out a couple of things here. San Diego goes and trades for Soto and kind of empties, quote unquote, empties the tank. We see them go, they were pretty high on this scale. I believe they were like 6 or 7 last year, and they drop all the way down here to, 23rd, actually, almost out of the top 25 rankings here for, Major League Baseball. Actually, sorry, I'm looking at the chart wrong. 28th out of 30. So big hit for them from the farm system perspective, but they got Soto. So I think, for them, they knew that was going to happen. Kansas City's one that surprises me. They've promoted a couple, but they still have some, what I thought were some big names in that farm system, and they're down there in the 20s. Washington, I don't know what they're doing in terms of cultivating talent there. They've made trades. They traded Trey Turner. They traded Max Scherzer. Now they traded Soto away, and they're still looking at, like 15th, 16th spot here. But then I look at the top 5 and Stove, how in the fuck do the Dodgers still have the second best farm system in all of baseball? They are on pace to win 113 games right now, and they've got the second best farm system.
Are we
is this just the Dodgers league for the next fucking 10 years?
I really don't know. Like you look at the Dodgers and the big names that have come through the Dodgers within the last, let's just say 7, 8, 9 years or so. Okay. And it's just like, they haven't, that's the thing. Like, they really haven't traded a lot for anybody, really. I mean, it's been free. It's mostly been some free agent signings. So, I mean, I guess you can say that since they haven't traded anyone away, that, their farm system is just staying top notch. And you saw what their farm system brought up, and Trey Turner and oh man, I'm drawing a blank here.
Well, you look at a lot of the names that they've had come through, like Corey Seager, who's now with Texas, but he was awesome for a long time in the middle infield there. Trace Thompson and Chris Taylor, and they just traded away Keibert Ruiz last year in the Scherzer deal, and it was ho-hum because they've got Will Smith, who's one of the fucking handful of best catchers in the league, waiting in the wings. So they had two unbelievable catching prospects on that team. They were able to trade away one of the best catching prospects and say, oh, well, we've got Will Smith. We're good. And Cody Bellinger's another guy who was a minor league guy that came up, and Justin Turner. And it is Gavin Lux. And like the names they just keep, and then the pitchers, not to mention the pitchers, they've got Pepio's been up. Dustin May just came back from injury. He was a guy from the minor league pipeline who everybody's talking about in the next handful of years. He might win a Cy Young. Walker Buehler, who is out on IL. He's having Tommy John again, but he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball the last 2 seasons prior to this year. So Clayton Kershaw, obviously homegrown talent. It is crazy to just think about all of the names that come up, because they do go out and get guys in free agency and a little bit of in the trade market. Mookie Betts was a trade, but
Mookie Betts was trade.
Won that one like running away because Boston isn't very good. And I've heard that trade compared several times to, you traded it out $1 in Mookie Betts for 4 quarters, and none of those 4 quarters are going to fucking play. And it's wild to think that they're able to just continue to make those moves like that. But, oh, by the way, just go pluck talent out of – they've got like 10 guys on IL right now too who should be contributors to this roster. But yeah, I'll just go grab – Andrew Haney, and I'll just go grab Ryan Pepio, and I'll just go grab some other guy out of AAA or AA and bring him up. And he's just going to – in his debut not long ago, I forget his name now, but they called a guy up who played 3 games for him. But in his debut, he had 3 hits and 4 RBIs. Like, that's just the players that they continue to fucking churn out from the minor leagues. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
and they're not drafting high. It's not like they have the first pick every year.
Exactly. So I'm going to make a cross reference here between sports, okay?
Yeah.
And by all means, correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm totally off base here, okay? Who is part of the Dodgers ownership and management? Big name.
Magic Johnson.
Okay. So when Magic was a part of
Showtime
and the Lakers organization, they were winning.
Yeah.
They have not won as of late because they pushed Magic out.
Because Magic got pushed out, and now he's over with the Dodgers, and they're
take a page from the fucking Dodgers. You might want to hire him back, Pavlenka.
Yeah, no, I mean you're not wrong.
I'm not saying that it's all magic here or anything else like that.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some correlation between the Dodgers management team, and then their scouts and everything else like that. You you can look at Theo Epstein and what they did, with the Cubs farm system when he first came over in 2011, 2012. They brought up a lot of homegrown talent.
Oh yeah,
Chris Bryant,
yep.
Javi Baez, Almora, Schwarber, Hendricks, all those guys, and look where they are right now, and part of, and you saw where the Cubs are right now in the farm system rankings. They're number 10, and they have some good prospects that they just called one up earlier this week, and they're getting ready to, call some others up this week as well. So definitely, and not to get off onto a basketball topic or anything else like that, but he's in your own backyard. You might want to take a page out of his playbook.
Yeah, for sure. And you're not wrong, right? Because, he came over, and it seems like once that ownership changed hands, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. They spent money. They continue to spend money year after year.
I like that you mentioned the Theo Epstein thing too, because it's, we think about what Theo did in terms of building both Boston's farm system and Chicago's farm system. But Theo comes from the school of that development, a little bit of the analytics game as well. But the other thing that Theo did in both places is mix really impactful free agents and trades with that farm system. And not every team does that. And we talked a bit about the Orioles at the trade deadline, whether or not they would go out and be buyers. And looking at their farm system, I understand why they didn't, right? I get that to a certain extent. But you look at what a guy like Theo Epstein did in both Boston and Chicago, and it's sort of what the Dodgers are doing with Betts, with Freeman that they went and signed this offseason, with, Trey Turner and Scherzer last year. It's those things that are making them as good as they are. They're able to mix getting these guys with having that unbelievable farm system. And I think you put it perfectly. Theo Epstein kind of laid the groundwork for that with what he did in both places in Boston and Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the one or two big hires or big signings that Theo did outside of Rizzo. Rizzo was one of the first ones that they brought over from San Diego. Okay.
Yep.
But then the next couple big free agent signings, John Lester, Hayward, and you can
end of his contract you can't look at because he was a impact player for that World Series.
Yeah. And you look at the kind of person he is too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you kind of bring in Lackey, you from the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And
he made a difference on the bump.
Yeah, absolutely.
He brought a bulldog mentality to that team too.
Both him and Lester had that bulldog mentality. Lester was not as fiery.
Yeah. I don't know how many guys in the league ever have been as fiery as John Lackey.
Yeah.
Maybe a guy like Roger Clemens or something like that. But yeah, John Lackey he'd let you know exactly how he felt when he was out on
absolutely.
For sure. All right, I want to talk real quick. Last point about the farm system here, and that's the Baltimore Orioles up there at the top. And what they're doing right now, I don't think that they are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they're going to come up just short. But it is a great building block for this team to know that they've got this farm system that they can pull from, but they're also having success with these young players, winning a lot of games this year. I think the move for Adley Rutschman, Ty and I talked about it quite a while ago about the fact that it felt like the Orioles were signaling we're here to win games now, where this is not your old, the same old Orioles from the 2000s, because we've just been in this perpetual state of rebuild. We've got a farm system that we can cultivate. We've got young players that we trust. We're ready to go win some games, and they've been playing ball that way. I like this offseason for the Orioles if they can go pluck a guy out of free agency, get an arm. If they can just add a good free agent signing to this young, roster. I think that there's an opportunity for the Orioles to capitalize on this number one farm system here and look at the next 2 to 3 years as this is our window to really go do something and make an impact here in the AL.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I like what the Orioles have done, but like I said in last week's episode, I don't think that they're going to be a 5-year team. I think this is going to be a 2 to 3 year team, and then they're going to trade off their pieces. But they trade off their pieces. They have the number one farm team. Does it translate into a championship baseball team out on the field? Time will tell.
Yeah.
But so real quick, sticking, flash that farm system overlay up there real quick. So sticking with your overlay, and I'll transition into my State of the Union. Look at the number 30 team there. The Los Angeles Angels. And as we know, or as news broke out yesterday, I think it was, maybe, the owner is, he'd be open to selling the team. Man, what a time to sell in this economy with Mike Trout and Ohtani on your roster.
Yeah, now's the time to
now is
get off.
Now is the time. The only issue with that, yes, you have Mike Trout on your roster, but with his health and with his back disorder, the spine, whatever is going on with that.
It's like a condition that they're going to have to manage forever.
That he's going to have to manage for the rest of his playing career. Yeah. That's kind of scary going into it. But at the same time, the name will sell itself. Mike Trout will sell itself. So you and I were talking before the episode about you had mentioned that your buddy had said that the Utah Jazz owner was looking at possibly expanding another major sports franchise in Utah there. And we both said, not the Angels.
Nope.
Don't relocate the Angels. We said relocate the A's.
Yeah.
So
go right up the coast a little bit.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Money talks, and it'll be tough to get the Angels out of LA, but money does talk in the end. And Ryan Smith has built kind of a pantheon there in Utah, in Salt Lake City with the Jazz. I don't think the Angels are the team. I agree with you. It'll take a lot to get them out of LA. Yes, money talks, but I just think that the Angels, being an LA franchise, having that connection to Japan, having that connection to the international market, them staying in LA is pretty important to Major League Baseball on a grander scale. But I agree with you, right? Let's go up the coast a little bit. It's time to take the Athletics away, honestly. It's been 30 years now that it's been this woe is me. We're in a small market. They won't give me a new stadium, yada, yada, yada bullshit. It's time for Major League Baseball to step in and say, you've got to go. This is a proud franchise that he's just waiting and waiting and waiting until another city will get approval from MLB and take his team so that he can go cash more checks. Because we've already talked about it on this show. Oakland is not nearly the smallest market in Major League Baseball. He could spend a lot more fucking money than he does, but got that private yacht. He wants to fucking keep fueling or whatever. Take that team away from him. Ryan Smith, let's do it, man. Imagine what the bandbox would be in Salt Lake City. It'd be a lot like Coors Field. A lot of elevation there in Salt Lake City. Let's go fucking score some runs in the state of Utah. Couldn't sell beer there. It's a dry state, but maybe they'll figure it out.
They might pass something there.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. I'm not sure how they deal with that at Jazz games. They've got to have some sort of stipulation. But let's go hit some bombs in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I totally agree with you on keeping the Angels in Los Angeles with those ties.
Yeah.
With the different countries and everything else. You have to have, that's huge. That's huge when, especially when you get a player like Ohtani.
Yeah.
I mean,
generational guy.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime guy, really.
Well, and it bridges gaps too. I mean, if you look at Suzuki with the Cubs right now, okay, before he signed with the Cubs, you want to know who he asked about playing in Chicago? Yu Darvish. You played with the Cubs, and Darvish said, it's a great city, great team. Fans will love you. And, and that plays a factor in some of these, in some of these signings for these players that are coming in from overseas.
Yeah. You look at a guy like Shohei and the city of Los Angeles for sure. And they had Nomo, with the Dodgers, and it's just it is for sure. Like you said, that connection is a big deal to a huge market. Chicago's a big market. Great to have a guy like Darvish to lean on. LA having a guy like Shohei build that international market, especially the proximity to Japan, right? Being on the West Coast. Yeah. Most international flights that come to or from Japan fly into LA or Seattle. So yeah, for sure. It's a big deal to keep him there in LA and keep that team in LA. And that's, like you mentioned first, that's a big marketing thing for anybody who's a potential buyer for this franchise. Yep. Having Shohei Ohtani on that roster and having Mike Trout, who is by many people's calculation the best player in baseball for the last 15 years. Well, I shouldn't say 15, last decade plus. You're looking at a real marketing opportunity to drive up the price of an MLB franchise, the likes of which we may not have seen previously. The Dodgers sold for a fuck ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't have Shohei Ohtani. They didn't have Mike Trout on the roster at the time. This team could go for a preposterous amount of money with that city, in this economy, and with those two players on the roster. That could be a big deal for MLB, and it drives up the price of every other franchise. So those collateral effects, major league owners are going to be looking at it like, okay, let's be strategic about this. We don't want to move the Angels out of LA. We don't want to move guys like Ohtani and Trout off this roster and out of the city of LA. So for sure, I think you're spot on with that take.
Yep. No, it makes you wonder I honestly think he will sell, what he sells it for, and what percentage, because I want to say just this week we saw what the franchises were worth.
Yeah, Forbes just released their
so it would be interesting to see what the revaluation would be if he went ahead and sold.
The Dodgers a decade ago, I had to look it up because I thought it was this number, but I was like, I think I'm wrong, but I wasn't. $2 billion in 2012 the Dodgers went for, and they did not have the roster that the Angels have in terms of star power with Shohei and Mike Trout. The Dodgers were an okay team when they sold in 2012. The Angels are not a good team, but they've got two of the biggest star attractions in baseball on that roster. And I think that sale price could be just ridiculous in terms of what it could go for.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
All right, let's finish up.
I see you added something.
I did. I snuck something in there. Something we talked about a little earlier in the week.
Yep.
We're going to have a little fun with fair and foul. So here we go. We'll save that one for last. So,
Okay.
all right. So MLB today announced that the schedule for 2023 is out, and all 30 teams are going to play all 30 teams. Okay. So across the board, you're going to play every team at least once next year, one series next year for baseball, which I think sort of levels the playing field, in my opinion. But Stove, I want to get your thoughts here on this angle of the question: fair or foul? The MLB revamping the scheduling format so that every team plays every other team at some point during the season is good for the growth of the game.
Foul.
Okay.
I'm going foul on this one. The only reason why I say this is why do you need an A's versus a Marlins? Okay. Or and I'm giving bad teams
Sure.
as
That's
examples.
fair.
Okay.
No pun intended. That's fair.
Yeah. MLB comes out with their schedule, every year. So they don't have a set schedule, So you can get your Braves versus Yankees or, your World Series opponents, you can put those into play for that next year. So why not keep that the same? And, instead of, because I think that builds a little bit more hype, than, oh, well, they're going to play each other next year anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So for that aspect of things, I'm going to say foul.
That's a fair take, and I didn't think about it that way when I was putting my answer together. And I'm not gonna change my answer, but your point is very persuasive. I will say that right off the bat, very persuasive. I just didn't think about it that way. That's a good take. I said this is fair because I thought about it from the perspective of every city is going to have the opportunity to get these superstars in town. So you've got the Cincinnatis of the world, the Oaklands of the world, the Miamis of the world that may not have great teams in their city, but there's an opportunity. I look at this like the NBA. When Michael Jordan came to town, everybody went to see Michael Jordan, not to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? So
Sure.
that was the angle I took on this, and I thought having guys
point.
like a Mike Trout play, in maybe it's playing in Philadelphia when he wouldn't normally play in Philadelphia, that sort of thing. To me, that was the way I looked at it. However, your point is very strong. I like the if they had said we're going to make a change, but we're going to keep some of that mystery in place to where they can have those World Series matchups maybe open up on, a certain day, right? Maybe it's opening day matchups with the World Series rematch like the NFL does with the Thursday night game to open the season. Or if it's the Field of Dreams game or the Hinchcliffe game or the Little League World Series games, like those sorts of games use those opportunities. But yeah, I think now that you mention it, the timing of it is not great. I like the idea of all these superstars going to different cities potentially, and I know they're not going to split series because there's not enough games in the year to split series. But every other year, a team's going to come to town that wouldn't normally come to town. So from that angle, that's why I say this is fair. But your point is absolutely a good one.
Yeah, no, I like your perspective on that too. I didn't think of it like that. So yeah.
Because we talked about it with like the Field of Dreams game and the Hinchcliffe game. Like, are we going to see all the teams kind of cycle through it? So,
yep.
All right. So here's the fun one. We're gonna have a little fun here with Alek Manoah and Garrett Cole. Alek Manoah said after the little tiff where he hit Judge unintentionally, and you could tell immediately that Manoah didn't mean to hit Judge, and he even went up to Judge and said, I apologize. I didn't mean it. He and Judge kind of wiped the slate. Judge even waved off the dugout and said, forget it. No big deal. after the game, he's asked a question and asked about Garrett Cole coming out of the dugout. And he says this quote, "If Garrett wants to do something, he can walk past the Audi sign next time." And for reference, those of you who might not have seen the video of this, the Audi sign is 6 feet in front of the Yankees dugout in the video, in the confrontation that Manoah is referencing. So, being that Garrett Cole is the king of fucking Charmin soft in Major League Baseball, a delayed start time was to blame for his shitty outing once. Soft as church
Red Sox too.
Yeah, it was soft as church music. Garrett Cole, fair or foul, Stove. Cole never had any plans to go past the Audi sign.
Oh, that's totally fair. Totally fair. Absolutely. He had no intentions whatsoever. He's getting up close and personal to the farthest point that he needs to go before
he's looking around for someone to hold him back.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, no chance. Garrett Cole is not, as Marshawn Lynch would say, not about that action, boss.
No, definitely not. Definitely
no
not.
chance. No chance. Oh, all right, bud. We had a little fun with that last one, but let's talk some closing comments here. What you got for me as we close the show here?
You know, we're starting to see some of these playoff implications. You know, the Yankees, the Mets, the Subway Series, the Astros, the Braves. This weekend, you have the Braves and Cardinals. You're starting to see some of these good, decent matchups that are playoff implication games. And, you know, it's going to come down. It's going to come down to pitching, you know, starting pitching and bullpen, just like it does in the playoffs. And, you know, the better team, you know, that has the best pitching staff, you know, usually wins the World Series. It's not offense. It's the defense. It's that pitching. And so this is what September baseball is for. It's for these playoff races. So I can't wait to see what the last 5 weeks of baseball has in store for us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to echo that as we close here. We've been talking about it. The games are getting close to when they really, really matter. And we're going to see these teams start to either separate themselves or falter under the pressure. September baseball means something different than midsummer, late spring baseball. We're getting close to October, which is the time for baseball as we close the season here. So, yeah, get your popcorn ready. Last 5 weeks, we're going to see some heated playoff races. For the Big Stove, for Ty, who couldn't be with us here tonight, I am Gary. We are out.